To be seen, I'm Brandon Lou, and this is Comic Conversation. It's been a while, and I'm sorry, but I brought a friend with me because we're gonna talk comics, and it's always more fun when I'm not having a conversation by myself. Uh, Joining me today is Steve Urea, my friend, my buddy. How are you, Steve?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. For those who don't know, if I'm speaking a little too informally, it's because I actually know Steve. Steve's a friend of mine. We've known each other for a while. We've met in the world of wrestling,
That's right.
and it was a shock and a surprise to find out that you are joining us in the world of comic books by producing a comic book of your own. Slowpokes was a Kickstarter, but it's a Kickstarter that succeeded. The Kickstarter day is ended, and you've surpassed your goals. Congratulations!
Thank you. So the point of making Slowpoke was just to get on this show, which has been booked for.
well, you are here. I'm glad you've met your goal. I hope to exceed your expectations, just as the goals for the Kickstarter has been exceeded. Sincere congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Tell us about Slowpokes. What I've read the first issue. I'm hoping to see more, but tell us about it. And yeah.
So Slowpokes, for those who are not familiar, is the first ever, I think, sloth horror comedy comic. And it was just finished for Halloween. So it's basically the idea of what if sloths became fast and became killing machines. And that thought crossed my mind, and I was like, I gotta see this thing through. And I saw it through, and I launched a Kickstarter back in September, and we finished it on Halloween, 12/01 on Halloween. And so far people are liking it, but it's bloody, it's gory, and it's ridiculous as fuck. And like, I just want people to enjoy it.
Why sloths? What? Just why?
So
why? What have you done to this beautiful animal?
So if you look at a sloth, sloths are creepy as shit. Like if you just look, they're creepy as can be. They have claws. Like why would God or life, whatever, why would nature give them claws if they can't use them? You know what I mean? I guess they use them to climb trees and stuff like that. But for me, I always thought of sloths as like, God made sloths slow to protect the human race. But if they became fast, they would just be these murderous killing machines.
Now, there's been a couple of images that you've shared publicly to help promote the Kickstarter and promote your book and hopefully entice people to buy it. I think the thing that really gets me the most, and I told you this privately, was just watching the smile of the sloth. They do just have like a naturally smiley face while it's holding the head of a poor victim. And it's just ridiculous. And this is the kind of thing you can see on a regular basis. What inspired the story? You were telling me that this is something that you began not even with the intentions of creating a whole comic. You were just doing this for fun.
Yeah. So I took classes with Comics Experience, which you can find, I think, www.comicsexperience.com. And it's basically a school for anybody who's interested in making comics. I've always seen schools about, based around the art. And for me, I can't draw for shit. So like, I was like, all right, what can I do? Like, is there a better school? Is there any school that teaches writing as well, or just writing without the art? And so I found Comics Experience, and I took a few classes, and the community was very welcoming and very open. So when I took the class, the one-shot class worth 20 pages, I always had that idea in the back of my mind. Just based on watching sci-fi movies, like watching those bad horror movies or bad sci-fi movies, like the Mosquitoes and the Sharknado, that type of stuff. And I was joking around with my friends. I was like, "Oh, what's next? What are they gonna do? Like sloths that become fast and kill?" And I'm like, maybe I'll keep that for something. And then with the comic, I was like, this would be a great place to put this because it's unexpected, it's ridiculous. And like, it's definitely my style where like you can kind of get away with, being a shitty writer by doing, you can kind of get away with it based on gore.
Are you a fan of these movies like the Sharknado?
Yes, I love bad horror movies. I love all of that stuff. And definitely a lot of that influenced my writing for Slowpoke because, the bar is so low. It's like, you got to go as ridiculous as possible.
What is it about horror and comedy that just kind of, when they meet, it's just this wonderful thing?
I just think, when people are in on the joke. So like once you open the cover, you're like, all right, the sloth, that's fast. Like you're already in on the joke. You're already anticipating what's going to happen. For me, when horror and comedy mix together, it's a beautiful thing just because, it's everybody's laughing together. Everybody knows it's going to be ridiculous. Everybody knows there's going to be gore. Everybody knows it's going to like mix together. And I just feel like you can bring those two worlds together and just make something magical.
It's amazing because when you see these small budget films, something like Sharknado has like 7 films. It like
so funny enough about Sharknado, the guys who wrote and directed Sharknado have a copy of Slowpoke.
I'm not shocked. You guys seem to have I've seen your Twitter feed, and you've got a nice little community there, and you're supporting each other's comics, which is just another beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Watching it, but there seems to really be a calling for not just horror, because horror has its gore fan base, and the suspense thrillers where you wonder, is this a drama or is this a horror? Where do we categorize this? And then there's something just for comedy as well. But horror buffs in general really seem to enjoy the whole spectrum of horror.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I thought just taking, if you wrote a comedy and if you wrote a horror movie, like a horror thing, like separately, you get, you get your niche audience, whatever. But I felt like bringing them together, it's like, all right, this is ridiculous. You're going to get more eyes on it. So like with horror, I knew at least on horror websites, there you could reach out to them and be like, hey, I got this thing about sloths becoming fast and killing people. I felt like people would respond to it, or people would be like, all right, I'll check it out, or I'll do an interview, or I'll do an article about it. And luckily that's definitely helped the promotion of it. Just shocking and surprising, and getting all the sick fucks who like this stuff.
There are people, of course, who don't seem to be too fond of it. Tell me about these sloth lovers who've managed to pervert their eyes with these horrible images.
So I have been lucky with all this stuff to get a lot of positive feedback, but I did get one bit of negative feedback because I thought to myself, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go on Facebook. I'm going to look in the sloth lovers group. I'm going to look in all that stuff. And I'm going to just post Slowpokes and try to promote it. And some person saw it and proceeded to, it like fucked up her day to the point where she had to write a comment about it, where she's just like, this is so weird and like makes me uncomfortable. Like this should not, like I don't like it. And I'm just like, oh, if I got my first hate mail, then that means I made it.
That's awesome. I've enjoyed your energy. I can see that you're enjoying every aspect of this, because it seems like positive or negative, you really just want to get a rise out of everyone.
I just want people to be entertained, especially during all this crazy COVID stuff, and just with comics. Like I feel like people are too serious, or people are it's a lot of superhero stuff, which is cool, but at the same time it's like I want to just do stuff that's different, and if it works, great. If it doesn't work, then it's a learning experience. And also I just think people getting riled up about killer fast sloths, like that makes me that's like the ultimate troll. Like that's fantastic.
Can you tell me why you decided to center this around a school trip?
So the school trip is based around an experience that I had growing up. So in high school, your last night of high school where I'm from, they take you to kind of like an indoor carnival, and that's your last night for high school. You go and enjoy, but you're there until like 6 a.m. Like it's not like, oh, you're there at 8 o'clock and you're done at midnight. They keep you there until like 6 or 7 a.m. when the buses come, and like that's high school. That's it. And for me, I'm like, that's such a weird thing. That's such a weird thing to do. You know what I mean? Instead of just having a graduation party, or just like, oh, we're still gonna have a party, but like everybody can go whenever they want. They locked everybody in basically, and I was like, you know what? That would be a great place to put, the slowpokes, put the sloths. And also, like whenever you see a horror movie, there's always some kind of carnival going on. And I just felt like with the kills, you could do so much more kills based around rides and just like the absurdity of it. And but a lot of that is definitely based on, it was called Project Graduation, and that was Project Graduation in a nutshell, but without the sloth.
when I looked at the venue for this carnival, maybe it's just me being a New Yorker, but that looked very much like the Barclays Center.
It does kind of look like Barclays Center. It does, but I also wanted to capture, like, you know, it's already a ridiculous concept. What if the owner of this place is just like this scientist, but she has, like, you know, a messed up childhood and she never really got to have it, so she has like a carnival in her facility. And I was like, yeah, it's just two ridiculous things, but like it worked. It definitely worked.
I was like, I see you like peppering like bits of like your own experience in here.
Yes.
You know, when I see that, is there a bit of Carlos in you? Our main
protagonist. There was a Karate Carlos. I feel like every high school, and maybe, and you know, you've dabbled in comics and anime and things like that. I'm sure you've known a Karate Carlos in your life.
You know what? My friend Mike is a successful Karate Carlos, though. He's traveled to other places in the world, participates in tournaments. That's awesome. In this way, he's made a career of being Karate Carlos.
So Karate Carlos, there was a kid in my school. I don't even know if his name was really Carlos, but like he was Karate Carlos, and like he always like just was always trying to tell you that he was this kung fu master, and like that he was just like, you know, powered by, you know, Dragon Balls and stuff like that.
Now, one of the things I enjoyed about the high school dynamic, and part of the reason why I really wanted to talk to you about it, is that it seems like a very old school trope. And maybe it still exists now, but I don't watch a lot of like teen-centered movies anymore. But you know, it's very cliquey. You know, jocks, cheerleaders, weirdos, goths, nerds, whatever. I don't know how much of that is still accurate anymore. You know,
probably so
many people are nerds now.
Yeah, everybody's a nerd now. I feel like with all this cancel culture stuff, like when I feel like if a jock called somebody, you know, the F word or something that's bad, I feel like the school would just be like, that's offensive. You're done. You're canceled.
Good, get out. I don't care. I will be the social justice warrior on this call, but I still enjoyed the comic. So I will not be attacking you for my offensive slots. But one of the things that I enjoyed is that Carlos, first of all, he's a chubby guy.
Yes.
But even though he seems to have like his own like little friendship, and maybe even he doesn't necessarily feel like the coolest guy there, he does have a love interest.
Yep.
And while he may have an antagonist, so to speak, that antagonist, that bully, isn't necessarily the most popular guy in the school either. It seems a pretty evenly balanced, like there's no totem pole. Like it's just, here's people, they either like each other or they don't. How did you find the chemistry, the balance between all these characters?
So for me growing up, that felt like my high school experience, because I went to a school, like everybody was a goofball. Like if I ever get to write about my high school experience, there's just so many stories of just ridiculous, goofy shit that happened. Like there was one time where a kid, you know, he would always have his headphones on all the time, and the principal's like, hey, take those off. And so one day he came in with the headphones on. He's like, it's not attached to anything. Like, take those off. He's like, it's not attached to anything. Take those off. He pulls out, and it's plugged into a potato. So stuff like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like in my high school days, like there were kids that you didn't like or whatever, but like you were still part of a community. You were still part of something. Like, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like a hate. It was more like, all right, this guy, like, you know, this guy's a clown. But whenever you would have like these moments where it's like, yeah, you like him one day, you hate him one day, but you're still part of this community. And I wanted to make sure I had that in Slowpokes, because like I was kind of friends with everybody, or like I was kind of like, you know, cool with everybody, where it wasn't like a pecking order. It was just like, all right, like I know this person from my class or whatever. And just I wanted to make sure I had that, because I just think like jocks, like I didn't have any jocks. I think in my
same. There was no really. I went to a very small high school, so everybody knew each other, and
yeah, exactly. So I just wanted to capture that. And just because like I feel like everybody makes friends with random people. Like you can't choose who you end up becoming friends with. You know what I mean? They just kind of pop up. The people you love in your life just show up. There's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do. So with like Karate Carlos and, you know, LJ It's like, well, they became friends. You know, they're probably in a class together, and it's just like, oh, this guy's funny. This guy likes karate. Like, oh, this guy likes art. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like you can kind of bring those two worlds together just based on experiences.
It was awesome. I was very happy to see that. I'm always interested in seeing what goes on with the characters and the writers, especially when they're taking on. We're not young guys anymore, Steve.
No, we're not. We're not young.
And, you know,
Oh,
so
man,
watching
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
watching people's approach when working with young adults and teenagers, it's always interesting seeing what aspects that they probably from their own experience bring into their writing and put towards those characters.
I feel so old that when I was watching, you know, that was it Bad Boys 3 that came out, I think earlier this year. They did the trailer and like Will Smith like jumped from building to building, and I felt that in my knees. I was like, oh man.
Sometimes I'll listen. I'll hear someone else's bones crack and get really scared that it's my own. That's the thing that throws me off.
I bought a shirt from TeePublic, and I guess there was like tape or something on the inside, or you know, maybe the print was weird, and it was attached to my belly, right? So I've been having stomach issues, so I just tugged at my shirt, and I felt like a burning, and I was like, I was like, oh no, like I hope, you know, my stomach issues aren't happening, whatever. I just got a hair caught to it, and it just ripped. I legit thought that like something was wrong. I was like, oh no, like what is going on here?
This is a very revealing episode of Comic Conversation.
I also feel like we could just do a podcast about us getting old. Just keep talking about things when we get old.
All right. So you said that you can't draw, but there's some wonderful art here. Tell me about Juan Romera, how this partnership came to be.
So Juan Romera, I was paired up with him using Comics Experience. So Comics Experience has their own creative services program. So for anybody who wants to make a comic, you can pay a fee, and they'll find you an artist, they'll find you letterers, they'll find you, editors, everything you need in one complete package. So for me,
that's the same with Sean Reinhardt as well.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Sean Reinhardt is the letterer of the comic for those watching.
Exactly. So luckily for me, like Comics Experience runs such a tight ship, and I trusted them because I got that. So if you read Slowpokes, there's an extra story for those who got the printed version, and that was actually my first comic, the 5 pages. And then after I did Slowpokes, I was like, all right, I'll throw that in there as kind of a bonus for anybody who wanted to do printed or signed version. And they paired me up with them, and it was just very good communication back and forth. It's like, hey, I want this, but luckily Juan Romera, just kind of his imagination, I wanted to let it run wild, and it kind of was on the same page of what I was thinking. And it really, there weren't that many notes. There were like little minor things, like, all right, maybe do this or maybe do this, but it wasn't. It was a very positive experience, no pun intended. And I'm looking forward to working with them again. But that's how I ended up with the artist and the letter.
I've already mentioned that your Twitter and the response, there's been a lot of sharing of other people's Kickstarter projects, and it seems to be a wonderful community. Have you formed any relationships with new artists? Any new ideas that collaborations you see happening?
Yeah, so it's just funny how small the world is. There's an artist named Tad Galusha, and he's from Alaska, and he's done stuff for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He's done stuff for Bubba Hotep. He reached out to me because he's like, oh, I love this concept. Like, I'd love to have you on my podcast. And just from talking with him, he actually lived near my town while I was there, and we probably crossed paths and didn't even know it. He's in Alaska currently, and we ended up like forming a friendship, but there might be something there down the line. But everybody's been very nice, very kind and very sweet about Killer Sloths or like about comics. I was expecting just like hate or like, you can't do that, or like, why are you doing are you ruining comics forever? But everybody's been very nice and very cool about it. Especially the horror.
So the hate only really comes after you're successful.
Yeah, I guess.
After you're successful, they'll treat you like Dan Slott. They'll treat you just don't be successful. Just stay.
Oh man, that Dan Slott stuff. I mean, I'm familiar with him because I definitely read a lot of Spider-Man growing up, and I liked some of his stories. But just the Twitter, man, Twitter is ruthless.
Yeah, and what's weird is Twitter. It happens so fast that I don't even always know what the problem is.
It's like, why are we hating this person today?
I managed to see like 2 different outrages on Dan Slott in 1 week. I don't know.
I did watch that documentary on Disney Plus, and it is interesting. But I guess like Disney, Marvel was just shitting on him for not, meeting his deadlines.
It seems between that and a recent issue of Fantastic Four that I'm not gonna spoil, but the it's out there. If you want to know why people are mad about what he did in the last issue of Fantastic Four, you can go check it out.
But I think people, I have to learn more about it to form my own opinion about it, I guess. Because like I just I'm like, oh, if it's negative, like I don't want to, God forbid I meet these people and they're really.
I stay as far. I just know it happens and it exists. The man wrote Spider-Man and Silver Surfer, and I love both those books that he did. So every time I log on and it's like, damn, what are you doing? Is it really that bad? I'm waiting
for one on Tom Hanks, because I'm waiting for one to be like America's Sweetheart. It's like, oh, Tom Hanks is a jerk. Like, what? Somebody I work with actually said that like Tom Hanks is a jerk, and I'm like, he could be a jerk and nobody would ever believe it. Like, what I mean? He could steal people's wallets. He could like pants people and be like, no one would ever believe it.
The Rock, the Rock, and you're good friends with the Rock.
Oh yeah, Dwayne. Me and Dwayne go way back. Dwayne, as I call him.
But the Rock always teases going into politics, and I'm like, don't do it.
He'll find
it. I don't want to know anything about you. I just saw the Undertaker in a Blue Lives Matter shirt. I don't want to know nothing about anyone's opinions. Everyone just shut up. Ay, Dios mío. All right.
Getting back to the topic, I guess, but we could talk about like celebrity Twitters all day. My favorite Twitter that's ridiculous, that shouldn't exist, but it does, is OJ Simpson has a Twitter, and I'm like, why?
I'm
why
familiar.
Do you have a Twitter?
He
has a TikTok too, and I was like, what?
Why TikTok?
Yeah.
Yo, don't ever believe that it's just for kids. It's for serial killers too.
I guess so.
Dancers, kids, people who like Hawaiian Punch, and serial killers. On the topic of wrestling,
mm-hmm.
Undertaker just had his goodbye, his farewell.
Yes.
He's far from the only scary person that we've seen in the World Wrestling Federation, or World Wrestling Entertainment, or World Championship Wrestling, or in pro wrestling in general. From the 70s, and who knows, maybe even before that, there's been a whole bunch of scary people in pro wrestling. Do you have like a favorite, maybe a top 3 scary people?
Okay, scary wrestlers. Definitely Abdullah the Butcher. Abdullah the Butcher is horrifying. Like, if you just look at this guy, he's got his scars and he's just everywhere. You know what I mean? That to me is horrifying. I would say Necro Butcher too. Necro Butcher is a lot of these deathmatch guys that are coming up, like Schlack and like all these guys. It's just like, what? Like, I don't know. I love wrestling, but I have a soft spot for deathmatch wrestling, because these people they love wrestling too, and they're usually the nicest people, but they do the craziest stuff. It's like, what? Like, what is going on here? And I'd say the Missing Link. Missing Link is probably pretty scary too.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that was a weird dude. That. And you're right, because the deathmatch wrestling, I've only been to one live. I called the match. It was fun. I think it was the Nick Gage Invitational.
Nice.
Might have been the first Nick Gage Invitational, and I had a lot of fun, but it took a lot out of me just watching it. And then you meet the guys and wonderful people.
Exactly. Like, they're so polite, and they're so like.
Matt Tremont is one of the nicest people I've ever met.
I remember I met Balls Mahoney, and he showed me the scars on his back, and then we were just talking about South Park. He's like, "Oh man, those lovable woodland creatures." I was like, "Oh man, like, what is my life like?"
I got to meet Balls Mahoney in Queens, and yeah, he's a character. He's a weird guy. with comics, you said that you grew up, you read some Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Did you find that you were a superhero fan, or were you always looking for something else when you were looking into comics?
I love superheroes just because, I mean, the art is so cool, and you know, I felt like with Spider-Man it was very relatable because I was a kid who loved redheads. I was a
Like,
kid,
I got Peter. I understood where he was coming from.
but like I just felt like with Spider-Man, like that's me. Like I have, I had a good relationship with my grandmother, and she was part, she was there to raise me, and it just like that kind of looks like me. Um, and I kind of gravitated to that, and then that kind of opened the gateway for all these other things. The thing is, and I don't know if you have the same opinion, but when the superheroes were coming up, I was more about like Spider-Man, Batman, probably anybody who had the animated series I was more about. When they did the Avengers, like when they first did the Avengers, like before it became like really cool, really big, I was like Iron Man. Like, you know what I mean? Like I just was like Iron Man. Like I just never liked the villains in the Avengers because I always thought they were too easy to beat. But like with Spider-Man, they had villains who had more of a story. It wasn't not nobody was like over powerful than anybody else. You know what I mean? Like Venom, it has the same kind of powers as Spider-Man. Like anybody could defeat anybody on any given day. That's what I liked about those type of things. You need that vulnerability. But with like Captain America and Iron Man, I mean, I was a stupid kid when I grew up. I started reading those again. I was like, oh, these are really good. I'm just an idiot.
Well, oh no, but I totally relate to that. It's very when you have these first opinions when you're first coming up, and especially as a kid, you're maybe less willing to give other people a chance. Because I wasn't an Avengers fan either. Like the X-Men was big
Exactly.
when I was a kid. Spider-Man and X-Men was it.
Yeah, I feel like X-Men were just cooler because it's just, here are all these people who have vulnerabilities, and they come together as a team to kick everybody's ass and to fight bigotry, and like that's really powerful and that's really cool. I just didn't relate to Captain America or to Thor because Thor has all the power in the world. Captain America just had a shield, so I wasn't really like into him until later.
I just thought the Avengers looked silly. I don't. I like there's something about maybe the X-Men and their uniforms. Like I like bought into it, but then like I would look at the Avengers and I would see like the Black Knight, Rage, Triathlon.
Which is an awful name for a superhero.
I think Cersei was involved. I don't know. The Avengers were always like switching around, and it never looked like a real team to me, except for that brief period where they were all wearing leather jackets.
Yeah, that's how you know it's cool.
But I wasn't an Iron Man fan either. I tried watching the cartoon. I liked the Mandarin, but that was about it.
But I also because we're on the Hispanic side. Like there's not that many. You know what I mean? I feel like there's more Hispanic superheroes in X-Men than say the Avengers.
I have noticed the odd correlation with Latinos and mutants. I was like, are you trying to say
Peter Parker looks a little Latino, like a little bit, like a tiny bit, like the newer version.
There are a lot of Latino alternate world Spider-Mans as well. I've noticed that. During my own brief, just like free time, I'll be scrolling through like just random comic stuff. Alternate world Spider-Mans is like, wow. Who's the one they had? Araña, the Spider Girl, Spider Woman.
And another Spider-Man fact based around wrestling. I didn't know Raven wrote a Spider-Man comic.
I did, and I own it, and I don't know where it is.
Because I believe it was a story of the wrestler that he beat.
That's Crusher Hogan.
That Spider-Man beat, and I'm like, and I also say this because you would understand this. Spider-Man did the indies. Remember that.
Spider-Man absolutely did the indies. That he made towns, brother.
He made the towns.
All right, Steve, I'm about to wrap things up.
Sure.
But I want to know where you can be found, where your comic can be purchased, where can you talk to the people and tell them how we can give you money?
Sure. If you want to check out Slowpokes, the sloth horror comedy where sloths become fast and kill everybody, go to my Twitter at the Steve Urea, Urena, or Slowpokes Comic, and you can find those on both Twitter and Instagram. If you want to purchase the comic, I have a Gumroad. So it's Gumroad /Steve Urea. Again, Urena. You could find it there. And I just finished my second comic, and I'm hoping to announce that in 2021.
All right. I'm still wondering if it's going to be a part 2 to what we've seen in Slowpokes, or if it's going to be
there will be a Slowpokes part 2.
Woo!
I'll be writing that hopefully over winter break, and then hopefully I have a lot more other stories to show you. I will tell you outside of this what the next project is, but some
things have to remain secrets, my friend.
I know. Well, I also want to make sure it gets done before. I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like to be a secret. It's just like, I want to make sure that like I have everything set up and everything is in the right place, and like the artist doesn't, run away on me or anything like that. I want to make sure I have
a from you. Oh, come on.
You never know.
A guy.
Crazy times.
Thank you for that, Steve. Of course, you can reach me at Lewis or Brandon on Twitter or Instagram, or if you want to hit up Comic Conversation directly, that's at Comic Convo, COMICONVO. And thank you. Let's keep the conversation going. Like, share, subscribe. Buy Steve's comic. Slowpokes is available now. Do it, brother. And this has been Comic Conversation. Thank you for joining us. Keep the conversation going. I think I said that like 2 times already. You know what to do. The buttons do that. Close the window already. Why are you still here? Bye.